What's going on, everybody? This is JohnJake Baseball on the mic here, coming at you with the final regular season episode of the USBL before we get into the playoffs here for season 2, and things are heating up around the league. So it's going to be a good one. Make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you have to be brand new to the channel as well. And let's go ahead and get things underway. As we go ahead, we check in on our first game of the day, the Chicago Freeze taking on the Baltimore Stonecrabs, both teams that are in the wild card hunt. Baltimore coming in just 3.5 games back of that last wild card spot. Chicago entrenched in that first wild card, but they want to chase the Minnesota Ducks for that division crown. So a very important game for both teams for sure, as Xander Bogaerts looks to go ahead and bring in the very first run of this ball game in the top of the first. And even though it was just a weak grounder to the shortstop, that still will end up being good enough to bring in the very first run of this game. We'll see if Chicago brings in another one, as Joey Gallo, we know Joey can still bang, but Joey Gallo takes a big cut at his slider and he's gonna miss. Tanner Tolley was able to go ahead and strike him out, as we do end up seeing Chicago just get that one run on the board, provide some run support early for Joe Musgrove, who is having a pretty decent season. 9-8, 3.44 ERA, so definitely an above average starting pitcher for USBL standards, but he's going to get a little bit rattled here early. Bottom of the second, we will see Baltimore respond with their first run of the game, courtesy of an RBI double from Danny Henderson. He's been having a fantastic rookie season so far. And matter of fact, they're going to end up getting at least 2 runs in this inning. A sacrifice fly a couple of batters later does manage to go ahead and bring Danny Henderson home. So a 2-1 lead here for the Stonecrabs, as it brings up Joey Bart, but Joey Bart also taking a big cut at that pitch, and he will end up striking out here as well. So Baltimore does end up bringing in a couple of runs, and they will enjoy a 2-1 lead. We'll see if Xander Bogaerts can change that. He has the only RBI for Chicago so far, and make it 2 RBIs for Xander Bogaerts, but this time this ball will not be leaving the ballpark, as Xander Bogaerts does end up getting his 25th home run of the season. So here we go, Julian Mayweather. We're going to hop all the way into the top of the 7th inning. This game, by the way, is still all knotted up at 2 apiece. It's been a really close game the entire time. We'll see if Jacob Stallings can break the stalemate. He's been really good for a 9-hitter. 327, 4 homers, 14 RBIs. Here we go. Jacob Stallings at the plate, facing a 1-1 count. Here comes the delivery from Julian Mayweather, as that's deep in the left center field. It's going to get into the gap. That brings in, should be 1 run. Could also be another run. Are they going to challenge at home? No, sir. And Chicago does end up getting 2 runs. Jacob Stallings, who may be the slowest player in the USBL right now. 0 speed. I didn't even know that was possible. But that being said, he does make it a 4-2 lead. As now Aurora Chapman comes in here in the bottom of the 7th inning, but he's going to give up a shot out into center field. Kyle Isbell sends an absolute nuke, 451 feet. That home run ended up being absolutely insane. So Aurora Chapman does end up giving up a couple of runs before getting that strikeout to end the bottom of the 7th inning. So definitely a close one here. We'll see if Joey Gallo can get the lead back for the Chicago Freeze. He's got a runner on first with 1 out, facing a 2-2 count from Julian Mayweather, as Gallo hits one into right field. Going to be a single. Actually, no, this actually could be a double as they try to throw to third base. And so seeing an opportunity, Joey Gallo slides into second. So it does end up being a 2-base hit. And it was at that point that Baltimore does end up going to their bullpen. A huge moment right now. Stefan Krishik comes to the game his 66th appearance. He does have 8 holds, as he will have to face Jose Abreu, acquired from the Columbus Jets in the trade day back in year number 1. As first pitch that we do end up seeing ends up being a wild pitch, and it makes it a 5-4 lead, despite the fact that it was called a strike, by the way. So definitely some wildness, some madness going on right now. We'll see if Jose Abreu can bring in yet another run for Chicago, although he will end up striking out here, taking a big cut, but is just got fooled by that slider, as it will bring up Aaron Hicks, who has struggled in this series so far. He is 0 for 3 in the game, 0 for 7 in the series. But that being said, though, Aaron Hicks getting his first hit of the series in a big way. A 6-4 lead now thanks to that ground rule double. We'll see if Chicago can hang on to it. As now, Manny Machado taking on Dominic Leon, but Machado, he thought he had the walk, but it ends up being a shot-out looking. So one out here in the bottom of the 8th as Will Myers is at the plate. He sends one out into center field. Is it going to have the distance? Yes, it does. Another home run for Baltimore. And Will Myers just went ahead and tied this game up at 6 apiece. And here comes Will Harris now. 56th appearance of the year. He's going to make sure to clean things up. He's going to get DJ Gregorius to go ahead and do some window shopping, because he strikes out looking. And Baltimore will not add any more runs in the bottom of the 8th. So at least one more chance for both teams before we go into a potential extra innings opportunity, as Alex Verdugo hits one into left field. It will end up dropping all the way to the wall, and Chicago will go ahead and take the lead 7-6. Can Xander Bogaerts build off of it? 1 for 3. He does have that home run. Make it 2 home runs in this game. Oh my! As Xander Bogaerts, home run number 26. Baltimore going to the bullpen one more time, calling in Jonathan Cheshire just to calm things down a little bit, facing Joey Gallo, who does put a charge into this ball, but it will die shortly before the warning track. But those runs in the 9th inning do end up being the difference, as Chicago wins a really exciting game here. They beat the Baltimore Stone Crabs by a final score of 9-6. And so that does mean Baltimore will now be under 500 once again. So let's go ahead and check out some more games with potential playoff implications. We got the New Orleans Kings, who definitely have fallen apart in the second half. There wasn't very many expectations after they did lose out on Rhys Hopkins and Yordan Alvarez in the offseason, taking on a Charlotte's Cougar squad, who, now Charlotte is a team that struggled in the first half, but they're trying to make a surge here in the second half of the season so that they can make their first playoff appearance in this entire series. That hit is out into center field, and it ends up dropping. Ball cannot be caught, and there's going to be a throw home. Is it going to get there? No! Marcel Griffith is going to be called out at the plate. Oh my! And so it will remain goose eggs on the board, but not much longer, as Anthony Santander can't throw somebody out if there isn't a ball in the park. Anthony Santander knows this. Hits a home run, and the 17th home run of the season for him does give New Orleans an early 2-0 lead here, as that was big for the New Orleans Kings. As one thing that they have struggled with over the course of this season is their offense. They have not been, they definitely felt the pinch on offense, losing Alvarez, losing Rhys Hopkins in free agency this past offseason. As Charlotte, they're going to get their first run in a more unique way. Jose Barrios actually walks a batter while the bases were still loaded. So now it leaves Malik Smith at the plate, 1 for 1 so far. This thing the bases are still loaded here, and Jose Barrios might have a base clearing thing right here, except it does end up dying in center field. And Charlotte, just like that, does end up tie this ball game up at 2 apiece. But now let's go ahead and see what the New Orleans Kings can do in order to respond. Top of the 3rd inning, and Sanchez is going to end up doing a little bit of window shopping. As we check out the standings here, Charlotte, they're not completely out of it yet. They're trying to make a surge. Philadelphia does have one of the wild card spots right now. That's who they're trying to chase in order to get into this USBL postseason. They need to win this game for sure, and not to mention, they do also need to go ahead and make sure, or at least hope, that the Philadelphia Patriots, we kind of have a little bit of a collapse here in late September. As we go ahead, we see New Orleans get runners into scoring position. We'll see if Luis Arias can bring him home, as that's out into right field. Is it going to end up dropping? No, it will end up being a sacrifice fly, but the ball does end up being deep enough to where we will end up seeing New Orleans retake the lead. So a 3-2 game that we're watching right now as Marcell Ozuna looks to tie it back up, and look at this play right here. Ozuna strikes out, but because the ball hits the dirt, Ozuna can run for first base, and we do end up seeing an error on the catcher. So even though Marcell Ozuna does end up striking out, he does end up getting to first base on error, and it sets up an RBI opportunity for Joey Votto. And Osuna's got a little bit of speed. He can get to third base now, as Ozuna rounding third, but deciding to return home instead. So Joey Votto hitting a big double for the Charlotte Cougars, as the tying run is simply 90 feet away. Should be getting home here if it gets through the infield, and it does. Could be 2 runs, so is Charlotte going to take the lead? Yes, sir. And Jermaine Carnelone makes it a 4-3 lead. As now, David Bodie, he had that really hot April in May, but striking out there to end the bottom of the 3rd inning. But Charlotte is going to retake the lead here in the bottom of the 3rd. We'll see if they can expand on that lead, as New Orleans was not able to go ahead and respond. As now, Garrett Stubbs at the plate, last man in the Charlotte lineup, as Stubbs hits one in the left center field. Is it going to drop, or is it going to stay out of the park? Stubbs getting that double, as it does end up hitting the wall out there in left center field. Great double. We'll see if his teammate Kevin Newman can bring him home a couple batters later, as Newman does hit one into right field. Will be called out, but the sacrifice fly will go ahead and make this a 5-3 lead, as we will end up seeing the Charlotte Cougars win a big game, as that will help them close the gap a little bit, not only within the NL East, but we also see them getting a key game in the wild card as well, thanks to that 5-3 lead. But speaking of the NL East, let's go ahead and check up on another NL East game. We saw the New Orleans Kings win earlier. Let's go ahead and see if, or not the, you know what I meant, but the Philadelphia Patriots, we'll see if they can win as well, taking on the Jacksonville Suns. They are currently completely in rebuilding mode right now. They were sellers on the USBL trade day this season, and now just trying to see what they have on their roster, who they can build around potentially for the future, as Jacksonville actually takes not only an early 1-0 lead, but a potential 3-0 lead here, as even though they have one of the worst records in the league, Kevin Biggio, 9th home run of the season. As you can see, the disparity in the records, Philadelphia 75-60 right now, and Jacksonville really bringing up the rear, 57-80. They are certainly on the way to having a top 5 pick in next year's USBL draft in order to potentially get themselves one of the blue chip prospects that could be coming in through high school or the collegiate ranks, or even for the international poll as Donovan Solano hits a shot. And don't look now, guys, but we might be seeing ourselves a little bit of an upset alert as Pat Velika, he's going to hit one as well into right field, and that's going to be gone. I don't believe this. Max Fried is getting absolutely torn apart here by the Jacksonville Suns of all teams. And you know what? That is why you play the game. That's why games are never decided on a piece of paper, even if it is just in the virtual world of MLB The Show. As we cut into the bottom of the third inning, and this Philadelphia offense is having a hard time getting going right now as Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he ends up striking out looking, and so does Justin Upton. So 2 outs here in the bottom of the third inning, but a little bit of trouble here as Carlos Rodon does end up walking a couple of batters. And one of the worst things that you could do is have runners in scoring position when Bryce Harper is up at the plate, and this swing of the bat might single-handedly get Philadelphia right back in this game, and they do just that. 34th home run of the year for Bryce Harper, and it's a 5-3 lead. But we need to see Max Fried get right here, and right now that's not necessarily happening, especially when on the Berto Mondesi. My man has a lot of speed. Great job by Bryce Harper getting out there in right field quickly in order to limit it to a double. That could have certainly be stretched to a triple. And Max Fried's day is actually going to be done before even reaching the 5-minute inning milestone. And so George Herrera is going to come in. He's got a runner on second, so we need a hold here, but Starling Marte gets a hold of one in right center field, and it's going to lead the ballpark. 2-run shot for Starling Marte, his 18th home run of the season. But now we got to go ahead and see the Jacksonville bullpen go to work here. Joey Wentz in a pickle here. And again, Bryce Harper in runners in scoring position. When you're got that going, if you're Philadelphia, that is simply barbecue chicken. So Bryce Harper gets another couple of RBIs. He actually has all the RBIs for the Philadelphia Patriots so far. So somebody else on this roster really needs to step up real quick as George Springer. He hits one in the center field. This could bring in yet another run. And Philadelphia is only down by 1 run, courtesy of the George Springer RBI single. And watch out here, guys. Philadelphia is coming back, and they're trying to come back with a vengeance. We'll see if DJ LeMahieu can tie this game up. Still no outs here in the bottom of the 5th inning right away. Joey Wentz riding that struggle bus hard as that's in the left field, and it's gone. Look at Girl in a Country Song. Solo shot for, or not a solo shot, 3-run shot for DJ LeMahieu. And now Jacksonville goes to the bullpen again. This time, they do call in Kyle Freeland to try to settle things down a little bit. But Sean Murphy, who was acquired from the Denver Bald Eagles back in the USBL trade day for this season, he's provided some great offense at that catch position. We saw it right there. Ended up getting that solo shot as Kyle Freeland does finally calm things down a little bit. But keep in mind, going into the bottom of the 5th inning, Jacksonville was up 7-3. So Philadelphia, they end up getting 7 runs in that inning. So the Sons of Jacksonville are certainly a little bit rattled as of right now. But Kevin Biglio gets him right back into his thing. A 2-run shot pulls them within just 1 run. We'll see if Jamie Lessie can tie this thing up. Roger Wiles, the 18-year-old rookie, he's gonna get hit off of, and Roger Wiles gives up the tying run. Jamie Lessie with another home run, 19th home run of the year for him. But Roger Wiles will also get out of the top of the 6th inning as well, as we do end up seeing a strikeout for him as that ends the top of the 6th. Both teams with double-digit runs, and Hey, that's what the USBL is certainly known for, man. We certainly have a ton of offense here. As we go ahead and jump ourselves into the top of the 8th inning, as we do see a hit down the left center line. It's going to end up being a fair ball, as it will end up being a double. So the go-ahead run for the Jacksonville Suns now finds himself on second base, but we will see a pinch runner. It's Michael Sinani who's going to be pinch running. They're bringing him in for his speed. As now, runners on the corner, still nobody out, as it brings up Kevin Biglio, who just now hit double-digit home runs. He has 10 home runs in this entire season, 2 of them coming in this specific game right here. He's been having a really great day so far. And how about this? Biglio with 3 home runs in this game. You cannot come up with a better script in Hollywood. 3rd home run today for Kevin Biglio. And the Jacksonville Suns will now take a 13-10 lead, as the Patriots will go to the bullpen again. Alejandro Cepeda coming in here, 13-10 game. We'll see if he can calm things down a little bit, but Jamie Lissy gets a really good hit on this ball as well, almost leaving the ballpark outright. It ends up being a double. So yet another run out there, or at least another potential run, as manager for the Philadelphia Patriots is going to come out, and he is going to go and take a quick conversation with Alejandro Cepeda. And I don't know what he said, but whatever he sent to his relief pitcher, it ended up working. A clean inning the rest of the way. But Philadelphia in a little bit of a deficit now, as we see Michael Sinani stay in the game. He will be subbed in out into right field, as we will go ahead and check out Austin Adams, his 60th appearance of the season, with the 1-2 pitch to Jesus Aguilar. And Aguilar is going to end up striking out swinging. Got fooled by the slider. So 1 out in the bottom of the 8th, as it brings up Justin Upton, who does have a hit yet today. But how about a massive hit for Justin Upton? You're going to get your first hit of the game. You might as well do it late. And while the game still matters, 13th home run for Justin Upton. As now, Philadelphia is simply just down by 1 singular run. Can Sean Murphy bring in the go-ahead run? Full count. 1 out. Murphy, is it a double play? If it is, it's going to end the inning. Yes. So, wow. How about that? That ends the game. And oh my goodness, Jacksonville, a big morale boosting win. They win 13-12 on the road. So seeing that we are in the Northeast, let's go ahead and swing up to Boston to see the Cleveland Rockers take on the Boston Quakers. And how about the surprise season that the Boston Quakers are currently enjoying right now? They are currently on top of the AL East after being sellers on the trade day in season number 1. And meanwhile, the Cleveland Rockers going in the opposite direction. They won the division last year, but they are currently sitting in last place. Not only last place in the division, but also could very well get the number 1 pick in the USBL draft next season. So you want to talk about being down horrendous, this Cleveland squad certainly is that. Oh, excuse me. Choked a little bit like the Cleveland team in the playoffs last year for the Rockers in the USBL. Not talking about actual Cleveland sports, right? Don't go at me in the comments now if you're a Cleveland sports fan. But that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the bottom of the 3rd inning, as we will end up seeing Mookie Betts come to the plate here. Got a man on first and second with 2 outs, as Mookie Betts is going to go ahead and belt this one into center field, and it is gone. Like a girl in a country song. 3-run shot for Mookie Betts. And it does end up making it a 3-0 lead. But the starter for the Boston Quakers gets pulled out really early after just 4 innings. even though they were all shutout innings, really shocked by how early that Boston pulled their starting pitcher. And Cleveland might take advantage of this potential managerial error, because we see for the very first time an actual runner in scoring position. That was Travis Shaw that was able to get the double out into left field. So Andrés Giménez is going to come in 0 for 2 so far already on the day, as Giménez hits one into right field, and it's going to leave the ballpark. And this game is going to be all tied up. Giménez with just his 6th home run of the whole year. In response, Boston's going to bring in Logan Gilbert, who's only making his 4th appearance of the entire season. But with ice in his veins, he's going to end up striking out Nelson Cruz. Gets him to swing on the outside pitch as well. But this game is all tied up at 3 apiece all of a sudden. And here comes the Cleveland Rockers, man. As Colin Moran, 1-2 count, is going to hit this one to left field. A little bit of a golf swing action, and it ends up leaving the ballpark as well. Almost saw an incredible defensive play, but Colin Moran still going to get that 11th home run. And now we see Cleveland with a 4-3 lead here, as Andrés Giménez back at the plate. But we do see a steal out there in second base. That was Joey Wendell, who does end up getting his 10th stolen base of the year. We will end up seeing a walk later on, as a couple batters later got runners on first and third. A sacrifice fly will bring in yet another run for the Cleveland Rockers, as it's a 5-3 lead for Cleveland now. Don't look, we already had one upset in this episode, seeing the Jacksonville Suns defeat the Philadelphia Patriots. Are we going to go ahead and see the same thing here potentially? Bottom of the 7th, Jake Marinofsky. He was acquired in the year one trade day as part of their rebuilding effort. It's been a nice compliment ever since he came to Boston. Was traded from New York, if you guys remember from that. Makes it a 5-4 game, as we will end up almost seeing a double play, but Ken Grubb could not get a handle on it. Should have been a tailor-made double play, but it's not meant to be. So Robert Stock's going to come in, as we do end up seeing him. We'll see if we can get that final out of the bottom of the 7th inning, or is Mookie Betts going to make him pay for it for the error? And that error is going to cost the Cleveland Rockers the lead that they had. It's all tied up once again, a 5-5 game. Let's go ahead and jump into the bottom of the 9th inning, as Cleveland makes some substitutions. Dylan Moore is going to come in with his defensive prowess over in the hot corner. Right now, a good start for the pitcher, Michael Givens, who came in during the 8th inning. No runs were scored in the 8th, so that's why I don't show anything if you guys haven't noticed, unless there's a scoring inning. Try to make it as short as possible. As Mike Tauchman's at the plate here, 2-1 count. We'll see what the delivery is for Michael Givens. It's out in the center field. Is it going to get into the gap? It does. Could be a double. We'll see if he tries to extend it out to third base. No. But we will end up seeing a runner in scoring position. And we will also see Boston go to their bench. Lede Taveras going to come in. He is the pinch runner, coming with his speed. Jonathan Villar from the Phoenix Firebirds is going to end up... No! What are they doing? Oh my goodness! Lito Taveras, he's going to try to steal third, and he's safe! What are you actually thinking? You don't need to do that. So a huge brain fart, and now just 90 feet away from home, and it's gone! And that's how Boston's going to win the game. A 2-run shot by Jonathan Villar seals the deal, and the Boston Quakers win this one on a walk-off hit. Oh my goodness gracious. This is what the USBL is all about. Insane action as Boston wins another one. They will end up winning this game by a final score of 7-5 as the Rockers continue to get closer to achieving that #1 overall pick in the draft. So that will take us to one of the last games that we'll see full gameplay of, and it's the Honolulu Islanders taking on the Atlanta Barons. Now, if you guys remember, the Atlanta Barons were a team that had the slowest start in the month of April. They was down horrendous, but they got a respectable record now. They're just 11 games under 500, which, given to where they are right now, I thought Atlanta legitimately was going to have one of the worst records in the league. And it makes you wonder what would have happened if we would have saw Atlanta finish a little bit fast, or start a little bit faster, I guess. Would they be in playoff contention right now? Who knows? But they can play spoiler right now as Honolulu. They have one of the best records in the league right now, 85-51 coming into this game. We'll see if they can play spoiler in regards to making it a little bit more difficult for the Islanders, who are out here in the hot Atlanta. And the bats are certainly hot right now. We see a solo shot for Yoan Moncada. And now it's a 2-0 lead for the Atlanta Barons as Christian Pash tries to get himself off the interstate, but looks like he's going to take a detour exit. Is he going to end up striking out swinging? But a 2-0 lead for the Atlanta Barons as Bo Bichette is at the plate. Sonny Gray, you know, he's getting some nice control over his pitches. That's the second strikeout for him today. We'll see if we can also get Brock Holt out, as Brock Holt, the exact opposite of a home or a strikeout, as Bo Bichette now makes it a 3-0 game. And the thing is, that was only Brock Holt's 7th home run of this entire year so far. Here's another one from Jesse Winker. It's good if it's fair, and it is a fair ball all the way through. Jesse Winker with a big hit as well. 32nd home run for him. So 2 home runs in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Makes it 4-0. How about we make it 3 home runs going back to back to back like Michael Jordan's Bulls, as Wilson Contreras, he also hits that solo shot. So now we see a 5-0 game here as Honolulu does go to the bullpen early. They bring out Peter Cato to face off against Christian Pash, as we see a steal attempt, and that was just not a great throw. So Tyler O'Neill, one of the fastest players in the USBL, acquired from the Jacksonville Suns last year in USBL free agency, and that's why speed kills. Tyler O'Neill literally just scored. He was at second base. He scored without the ball leaving the infield, guys. Like, that is some insane speed. The thing with Tyler O'Neill is that he always had a tough time getting on base, but when he does get on base, man, watch out. He is absolutely electric. As Wilson Contreras looks to extend his lead even further now. He's going to get a nice pitch out into left field, and it's going to be a fair ball, just barely over the foul line, as it ends up bringing not just one run in, but another run as well in Atlanta. How about this? 8-0 lead right now, as Honolulu just has absolutely struggled. Mike Trout particularly has struggled in this game. He's going to strike out to Kyle Kubet. We'll see if Matt Chapman can do anything. Also acquired from the Denver Bald Eagles. Seeing quite a few Denver acquisitions in this episode, you know, playing on different teams. I guess that's what happens when you're selling 2 years in a row and just having a hard time, you know, getting your, you know, your roster together, per se. As Honolulu does eventually get their very first run on the board, but, you know, just not a good day for Honolulu. You know, couldn't stop anybody, and their bats weren't really going whatsoever. Jelani Jones, he's going to ground out into a double play, as that does end the game. Atlanta does get themselves to 10 games under 500, so nice job. Watch out for Atlanta in season number 3, given how strong that they're finishing here at the end of this season. But in the meantime, they will go ahead and enjoy this 8-1 win. So as we're getting ready to sort through the madness that is the last regular season episode, we gotta get, there's still a lot of teams that are still in this thing. There are actually roughly 20 teams that still have a somewhat realistic shot of going ahead and making it to the playoffs. It's been a crazy battle for sure. And you know, first game we're going to definitely look at though is Las Vegas versus San Antonio. Now these two teams, they have been fighting for an opportunity to go to the postseason. It's been a really close affair, but Las Vegas does put up 3 runs on the board. We will end up seeing Las Vegas beat San Antonio. That's a big win for Las Vegas. It helps them out for the battle for that second wildcard slot. Meanwhile, out in the NL Central, I mean, we still have that whole division to try and go ahead and get settled as well. Memphis is still in this thing. Indianapolis, they're kind of in a situation where it's either you win the division or you miss the playoffs entirely, because the wild card, you know, doesn't seem like too terribly realistic. So everyone in the NL Central is still in it technically. But that being said, as Memphis scores 2 runs, Indianapolis will respond. But it looks like Memphis will end up coming out on top. Jordan Bauzovic goes 9 full innings. He's getting his 6th win of the season. Loses out to Madison Bumgarner. So definitely a really good game that we witnessed for sure. And Memphis will stay alive in the NL Central. Speaking of NL Central squads, the Milwaukee Bears are also still in it, and so is the Columbus Jets. Now, this time last year, they were a team that were sellers, and they had one of the worst records in baseball, but this season, that turns out to be not the case here, actually, as we do end up watching Columbus and Milwaukee go up against each other. And pretty close affair, but Milwaukee does end up getting 2 runs. But Columbus comes back with 5 runs of their own. They start to really go off, and Columbus is really going to pull away. They beat Milwaukee, and so Columbus, they're trying to keep themselves alive as well for that second wild card spot. Chicago got a pretty good grip on it, so that really helps the Columbus Jets, whereas Milwaukee, this is a big blow. And not to mention the Atlanta Barons, who still somehow have just an inkling of hope of staying alive in the AL wildcard hunt. They're still kind of, it's realistic, but it is going to be an uphill climb for Atlanta. They're just trying their best to stay alive in this thing, but the fact that they're still even in the conversation this late in the season, considering they were sellers at the trade day, that is absolutely insane to me, to be honest with you guys. But Atlanta, they currently have a 2-1 lead as of right now, and extending that lead, going to be up 9-2 going into the bottom of the 9th, and they will end up hanging on, defeating the team that's currently leading the AL East in the Boston Quakers. Brock Holt gets named player of the game, 4 for 5, 2 runs, a homer, and 2 RBIs in this ball game. And it's a great performance once again for Atlanta, a big one to stay alive for the AL wildcard. Meanwhile, you want to talk about 2 teams that are currently fighting to have the best record in the American League. We got the Minnesota Ducks and the Honolulu Islanders getting ready to start their 3-game series. And this is a really crucial game for Minnesota, given at the Chicago Freeze are right on their heels in terms of the AL Central. They're really only 1 game back. So if Minnesota loses this game, then they're going to be tied up with Chicago. And this is despite the fact that Chicago was a team that had a little bit of a slower start here in season number 2. But that being said, though, we're really starting to see the Minnesota Ducks really start to fall apart a little bit, as Minnesota does beat the Islanders 13-3. So that really helps them out quite a bit, taking that 10-run advantage. So you absolutely love to see that. That was a crucial win for the Minnesota organization. Speaking of close division races, in the NL East, we have Philadelphia, who's trying to close on the Washington Senators. As of right now, Washington, they only also have a 4 4-game lead over the Philadelphia Patriots as of right now. So 3-game set here for the Washington Senators, you know, in this series. What could help determine whether Philadelphia has a shot at the division, or are they going to be relegated to that wild card. And right now, Philadelphia is looking pretty good. 5-0 lead. Make that a 9-0 lead. And look at this. 12 runs in the top of the 8th inning. Oh my goodness. You cannot make this up. How about this? 21 runs in the last 3 innings. A 26-1 victory. Bryce Harper goes off. 4 for 7, 3 runs, a home run, 7 RBIs as well. Dude even comes through with a stolen base. You can't make this up. That is absolutely amazing, and it was very crucial that they got that. So the Washington Senators do end up losing the 3-game set to the Philadelphia Patriots. They lose the rubber match by a final score of 4-3. And now they start a 3-game series against the Charlotte Cougars. Now, Charlotte is a team, they was dead in the water at one point, but here we are. They are a squad that has a real opportunity here to go ahead and make something shake. Charlotte's coming in here with a 13-game winning streak right now. I am not making this up. They are doing everything in their power to try to make a run. We'll see if they can keep that winning streak going. 13 games on the line. And right now, Charlotte could very well do it. Got a 7-2 lead going into the 7th inning. And Charlotte wins again. This time, we're talking about a 14-game winning streak. Look at what Charlotte's been able to do. If I can find Charlotte, look at this. They have not lost in the month of September. That is literally unheard of. Wow, they are really trying what they can to make a late playoff push. This is absolutely insane. And the thing is, too, it also opens up a door for the Philadelphia Patriots, because right now it's a really close race for that 1st and 2nd wild card. So I'm sure Philadelphia, if they can help it, they don't want to deal with a potential game situation to where you could see Philadelphia in a 1-game playoff. They did not have very good postseason luck last year. I'm sure they want to avoid the wild card if possible, and they got to play against Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee, they're trying to still grind themselves through the NL Central, but right now it's not looking too good for Milwaukee, except they are trying to come back, but Philadelphia will end up closing the door, winning 12-7. DJ LeMahieu does get named player of the game, 3 for 5, 2 homers and 3 ribbies, is the absolute difference maker, as Philadelphia does end up winning another one. They win 4 of their last 5 games as well to go with it, and that's a big boost for that ball club. Speaking of the American League Central, Aurora and Indianapolis are actually going to get ready to go at it here, and the Indianapolis Indians and the Aurora Lightning, they're both in a situation. They're fighting for the top of the National League Central. Both teams separated by just 1 game. So this series could very well decide who wins the division, as we are closing in on the last few weeks of the season. And right now, Indianapolis firing on all cylinders, a 14-1 lead that they hop out to. And they're going to ride this thing out. 26-4 ends up being the final score. Francisco Lindor, 5 for 7, 2 homers, 4 ribbies. My man was balling out. So while Aurora and Indianapolis could potentially take each other out, this could also open up the door for Louisville as well, who, even though at the bottom of the division, it's still not out of the question that they can come back and win it outright, but they got a really tough series on their hands. They got to go and play against the Chicago Freeze. Now, the Chicago Freeze, they're also in the hunt right now to fight for the American League Central. Probably one of the best races in baseball, by the way, as we see the talent that Chicago has right now. I mean, they're the defending World Series champions. That is simply something that cannot be taken for granted. Although Louisville storms back, they scored 10 runs in the top of the 9th inning, and Louisville wins. Oh my goodness, 10 runs in the top of the ninth. What? Wow. That's insane. Wow. Wow, just a loss for words right now. Just in the closing phases. I did not see that coming whatsoever, but good God almighty. Is that something fantastic? Should be in for a historic playoff hunt. We're going to have some exciting USBL action here, man. As we go to the next game, San Francisco taking on Las Vegas. Las Vegas, they're also embroiled in that second wild card right now. It's been absolutely just something else. Las Vegas could end up winning this game as well. And if San Francisco loses here, in which they do end up doing so, then, you know, San Francisco, that just makes it a lot closer for them to fall out of that division lead. Now, San Francisco does go in the playoffs, but I don't know if they want to do that 2 years in a row, try to make that kind of run. As Baltimore also trying to get themselves back into this. We saw Chicago blow it, so Minnesota here now has a chance to go ahead and try and distance themselves away a little bit from the Chicago Freeze for the AL Central lead. Baltimore trying to get in through the wild card. They were just roughly 4 games out, I believe, coming into this particular game right here. We'll check out the standings real quick after this game is finished, as Baltimore will end up beating Minnesota 12-3. So Minnesota loses as well, so it will remain just a 1-game lead for Minnesota over the Chicago Freeze. Baltimore getting some ground in the wild card as well. Okay, so just a quick look around as we get into the last couple of weeks of the USBL regular season. Just taking a quick peek around. Boston Quakers still have a 3.5 game lead over the Baltimore Stone Crabs in the AL East. American League Central still tight. Minnesota just a 1-game lead over the Chicago Freeze. The Pittsburgh Force also 7 games back. In the AL West, still could be one of the first teams to clinch their division, as the Honolulu Islanders, they have an 11-game lead over the second place team, Las Vegas Lounge Wizards. And this is, you know, with roughly 22 games left to play for Las Vegas as of right now. Wild cards also looking pretty interesting as well. We are seeing the Chicago Freeze with the first wild card. Pittsburgh has the second. But Las Vegas, they are 1.5 games back. San Antonio's back 4 games. And then Baltimore's 4.5 back, with Columbus 5 games back in the wild card. Still 6 teams that are fighting for those 2 wild card spots. Over in the National Leagues, Washington still has a lead, but definitely getting very tight, as Philadelphia just has a 1-game deficit, and then Charlotte has worked themselves back into the division race. 4.5 back here, thanks to that 16 game winning streak. I have not seen anything like this. Charlotte literally willing themselves to the playoffs right now. We'll see if they can complete the journey. NL Central's down to 4 teams that could realistically win it. Right now, Aurora's on top with a 1.5 games back for Indianapolis. Milwaukee is back 5 games. Louisville 6.5 back. NL West down to 2 teams. San Francisco starting to pull away from Los Angeles a little bit. They're back 3 games as of right now, as that takes us to the NL wild card. Right now, Philadelphia and Los Angeles are actually tied for who will get that first and second spot, but Charlotte's just 3.5 back in the wild card as well. Indianapolis 7.5 back. So really, Charlotte's really the only realistic team that has a shot at the NL wild card. We're starting to get pretty close to figuring out which of these teams are going to be in the playoff field in the National League. So let's go ahead and see if we can go ahead and get this playoff field narrowed down a little bit. We're getting down to the last couple of weeks of the regular season, and listen, got another close one here. Got San Francisco, got Las Vegas, as they're rounding up they're wrapping up their 3-game set. And right now, it's kind of a rubber match between these 2 teams. As of right now, looks like San Francisco currently does attain the advantage, but Las Vegas does go ahead and seize the lead. But here comes San Francisco with 10 runs in the 9th inning, and San Francisco will win out and beat Las Vegas 11-3. Meanwhile, the Charlotte Cougars are going to continue their historic winning streak that they got going on. They still have somehow not lost a single game in the month of September. We'll see if they can keep it going or not. Right now, not looking great, except Charlotte does get 2 runs in the top of this 3rd inning. It's a back and forth affair, could go either way, but Washington puts up 5 runs in the bottom of the 6th. Here comes Charlotte. It's a photo finish, and Washington walks it off on the Charlotte Cougars. Graybar Torres playing hero, 5 for 6 in this game. 2 homers, 7 RBIs. My man carried the offense and provides the Charlotte Cougars their very first loss in the entire month of September. That's insane. So if the Philadelphia Patriots want to go ahead and keep up in the NL East race, then they will need to go ahead and respond themselves. They have to beat the Milwaukee Bears here. We'll see if they can do it. Right now, off to a decent start, taking a 2-1 lead here early, but Philadelphia, they get 6 on the board here and actually make that 14 runs, and they're still going. They're just taking a ton of 30 runs. Are you serious right now? This isn't a simulation, by the way. So Philadelphia beats Milwaukee 37-5. Like, yo, that is really something else right now, man. Bryce Harper, player of the game, 6 for 8, 3 homers, 7 ribbies, 2 doubles to go with it as well. Whew, that is something special. So that being said, the Aurora Patriots do also have a rubber match here for this game between Indianapolis and the Aurora Lightning, which we will go ahead and quick manage real quick for both squads. Right now, if Indianapolis wins this game, they would actually be tied with the Aurora Lightning in this affair. We got a pretty close defensive matchup. Indianapolis does get a few runs here, making it 6-0, make it 8-0. Aurora cannot score enough runs in the bottom of the 9th. So Indianapolis wins 8-3. So that will mean that Indianapolis and Aurora are just a half game separated from each other right now. But that being said, though, the Louisville Colonials have been doing some really good stuff right now. Louisville, they are trying to work themselves back in this game, and Chicago actually does beat Louisville 8-5 in this one, so they will go ahead and prevent the sweep in this game necessarily. We'll also go ahead and see what happens with this Baltimore and Minnesota game. Baltimore trying to keep itself going in the wild card race, and they're going to do just that. Baltimore does end up winning that one 9-6. As we go ahead, sim the rest of these games real quick. Columbus loses. We'll end up seeing Pittsburgh win as well. Honolulu will win their game as well. San Antonio will keep up, but Jacksonville will pull the upset. So definitely a lot of good action around the league right now. Denver actually beats Los Angeles 8-0, so that's really interesting as well. So we do go ahead and simulate to the next day. We go and check in on a couple of matchups happening around the league. First and foremost, does Charlotte keep their hot streak going? Do they beat the Philadelphia Patriots? And they do end up doing that, and that's huge for Charlotte because that means they gain a game in the National League East race. We'll see if Baltimore can have the same luck. They're trying to work themselves back into it as well, trying to chase the Las Vegas Lounge Wizards for that second wild card. And Baltimore does the same thing as well. They win 4-0, and we see Charlotte win 8-1. So definitely some good stuff happening around the league. Another upset that I want to talk about here is San Diego. They beat Los Angeles 1-0, and Los Angeles has been slumping a little bit here towards the end of the season, letting San Francisco slip away in the divisional race. And if they're not careful, they could miss the postseason entirely as well on top of that. So this does go ahead and takes us to the 20th, where we check in on Honolulu. We'll see if they can keep the good vibes going against the Pittsburgh Force, who are in the hunt to go to the playoffs as a wild card team, has a slight chance to win the division as well. In Pittsburgh, they do what they need to do. They win 7-6 in this case. Minnesota also being upset by Houston winning 2-1. So Chicago should be in the lead now in the AL Central, not the Minnesota Ducks. Seattle also pulling an upset on San Antonio. They are trying to play spoiler right now. We also see Charlotte win as well, so they gained yet another game on the Philadelphia Patriots. Washington also loses, Phoenix winning on the road, as it does take us to this Indianapolis-Milwaukee game. Got some implications in the NL Central, and Milwaukee wins as well, so they keep themselves well in the fight on top of that. So a few days later, we get to about the 23rd of September. We're looking at a few games of critical importance. We got Chicago and Boston playing up against each other, and the Boston Quakers, they will come out on top. They actually win in extra innings, by the way. They win 5-4 against the Chicago Freeze. We do also notice a couple of upsets as well. The Cleveland Rockers pulling an upset on Baltimore, and then the New York Knights also pulling the upset on the Columbus Jets to go with it. So that hurts both their playoff chances a little bit. Las Vegas and Pittsburgh do also play against each other, and Las Vegas goes absolutely off. 15-4 victory against the Pittsburgh Force. And here we see even more upsets around the league. Seattle beating Minnesota. The Milwaukee Beer, they're realistically out of it, but they beat the Charlotte Cougars. Charlotte could not even get a run across the plate. Philadelphia loses as well, and the same thing can be said for Indianapolis. Washington does end up winning, so that helps them out in the NL East, but Los Angeles does also beat Aurora, and that does not necessarily help Aurora whatsoever. Los Angeles trying to keep up with the San Francisco Seals, who also won in this game as well. So now here we are in the final week of September, and yet we still don't have any playoff spots clinched yet, at least as of right now. Still some big games around the league right now. Gotta check out what happens with Chicago and Boston. And Boston does end up beating Chicago 7-4. Columbus ends up getting upset as well, losing to the New York Knights 4-2. And then Las Vegas does end up beating Pittsburgh to help keep them alive in the AL wildcard race. Pittsburgh and Minnesota do currently have those spots in hand. As we go ahead and see San Antonio, they upset San Francisco. That will help them get one game over 500. Charlotte loses again. Now, they had that really big winning streak, and now they're on a 4-game losing streak. Thanks to this loss here against Milwaukee. Not a good look. Philadelphia wins. Indianapolis does end up losing, though. So, Aurora, they got a chance to take the lead in the NL Central potentially, and they do just that, beating Los Angeles 7-6. The Senators also taking care of business as well. On the next day, we do end up seeing some key series starting, including the Pittsburgh Force. They're starting their series against the Chicago Freeze, but we do see the Boston Quakers get the upset. So they're upset. So Baltimore game's a half a game because Baltimore is off for today, and Pittsburgh starting off the series right. They beat Chicago 6-0. So that will help them at the very least, keep that hold in the second wild card. Maybe, make something shake. Las Vegas as well. They end up beating Honolulu to get their series started as well. But Columbus pulls the upset on Minnesota. So still a pretty close race in the NL East. Still looking to see if Charlotte can rally back. And it looks like Charlotte is starting to run out of gas. Another loss for them. This time at the hands of the Philadelphia Patriots. So definitely not looking good for Charlotte, as they look like they're starting to inch closer and closer to losing out on a playoff appearance. San Francisco, meanwhile, does end up beating the Washington Senators by a final score of 10-6. So San Francisco, they're going to improve their lead and very close to clinching the division, actually. So this is now a really good time to see some clinching across the league, as we are noticing the Honolulu Islanders, they have clinched the American League West. So a year in which we saw them have that second half collapse. They right now have the best record in the entire league right now. They clinched their division, so we'll see if they can get that #1 seed. That hasn't been set in stone yet, but close races around the league right now. Minnesota, half-game lead right now over the Chicago Freeze. Neither team really doing what they can to win the division. It allows Pittsburgh to get right back into it. They're only 3 games back now all of a sudden. And then in the AL East, Boston, just a 1-game lead over the Baltimore Stone Crabs. Baltimore with a 4-game winning streak right now, trying to stay in this fight. As we're starting to see a very clear picture. Right now, Chicago and Pittsburgh have a pretty solid hold of the wild card. But that being said, Las Vegas, they're still technically in it. 3.5 games out, but 7 games away from being eliminated from wild card contention. Las Vegas, they got to go on a hot streak, and they got to do it right now. They have no more time to wait. Meanwhile, in the National League, we are seeing the Washington Senators with a 1-game lead over the Philadelphia Patriots. But because of Charlotte's cold streak that they're on, losing 7 of their last 10, they're now 6.5 games out. Safe to say they will not win the National League East. It's down to just a 2-team race. And now Central's interesting as well. Aurora right now with the lead, currently having a 3-game lead over Milwaukee, the only team with a realistic shot, I think, of winning it, thanks to Milwaukee's 7-game winning streak, by the way, so that's interesting. And then the NL West, we do see San Francisco not necessarily clinched the division yet, but we do notice that San Francisco has clinched a trip to the playoffs once again, whether that be as a wildcard team or more likely as division squad. We'll have to wait to see on that. And speaking of the wild card, Charlotte's still in it, 3.5 games out, but 7 games away from eliminated. Same situation as Las Vegas over in the American League. You got to make something shake. You got to make something shake right now if you want to get yourself into the wild card. So we check in on where we're currently at right now, and that is the 29th of September. And we got to see what happens between Minnesota and Chicago. Right now, we saw that Minnesota with a very narrow lead right now, and they increased that lead thanks to a 6-4 victory over the Chicago Freeze. Minnesota with a 2-1 lead, and that gets them up to 1.5 games ahead of Chicago. Pittsburgh was off on the day, but we do end up noticing Las Vegas. They do beat Honolulu. New Orleans pulls the upset on Milwaukee as well. And then we do also end up seeing one more game that needs to be played, Washington and San Francisco. San Francisco will come out on top, and they get yet another win on the docket. They go ahead and beat Washington in the series finale between those two squads, winning 7-1. Now, I talked about how we know that the AL East is really close right now. Well, Baltimore and Boston actually are starting their 3-game series right now. Baltimore just 1 game back from the Boston Quakers. So this is a huge series for them. And right now, not a good start for Baltimore, as Boston does find a way to win by a final score of 4-1. Minnesota and Chicago, we also know, are currently trying to put in that work as well. Minnesota narrowly defeating Chicago by a score of 6-5. But we do also notice a couple of upsets. We do notice Pittsburgh losing to Columbus. So that, Pittsburgh cannot take advantage of the fact that Minnesota and Chicago are kind of tearing themselves apart as of right now. We do also see Philadelphia winning 6-3. And we got one more game here. Washington now playing against Los Angeles. They just finished playing against San Francisco Seals. So a brutal end of the schedule for the Washington Senators. But right now they're handling it pretty well. Washington beating the Saints by a score of 7-2 as we go ahead and start wrapping up this month of September. So another check at the standings real quick before we go into the month of October. And we do see San Francisco. They do officially clinch the division. 94-60 record. So definitely they are certainly close to winning 100 games. Looking at the rest of the league real quick, we do see the Aurora Lightning. They got a 4-game lead over the Milwaukee Beer. They'll likely take the division. National League East, though, is getting interesting, though. We got a tie right now for first place. we got Philadelphia and the Washington Senators. They're currently tied right now, 87 and 67 record. As we take a look at this NL wild card, right now, like the first wild card would go to whoever loses between Philadelphia and Washington. But the Charlotte Cougars, they're 3 games back from the LA Saints. Saints currently holding on to that second wild card. They're 84 and 70 as of right now. Checking in on the American League real fast as we get into the month of October, we do end up seeing Boston. They, with their win against Baltimore in that series opener, they have a 2-game lead on the Stone Crabs. This is a series where Boston can really solidify themselves as division champions potentially. AL Central still interesting. You've got Minnesota. They're increasing their lead over the Chicago Freeze, who are on an 8-game losing streak. They're still in a pretty good position to win, or at least get themselves into the playoffs. But now Las Vegas is creeping back in. Las Vegas, they're 2 games out right now of the wild card with roughly 9, maybe 10 to 12 games left to play, I think. I mean, we're starting to run out of games, to be honest with you, but Las Vegas can still sneak in there, so watch out for the Las Vegas Lounge Wizards. So that will go ahead and start us off with October baseball, man. In Boston, you know, if they can win this game against Baltimore, they would be in a really good spot. Unfortunately, though, Baltimore, they beat Boston 7-3, so their rubber match is going to determine whether Baltimore will be able to tie the series or to be just tied in general versus the Baltimore Quakers in the AL East. Meanwhile, Chicago, they finally end their super long skid. They beat the Minnesota Ducks 7-0. Pittsburgh cannot take advantage, though. They lose to Columbus 9-3 on the road. Las Vegas, same thing for them, losing 6-1 against Houston, so that's not looking good. Philadelphia loses to Indianapolis as well, so they can't take advantage either. Aurora loses to Memphis. A lot of upsets on this particular day, that's for sure. But we'll see if Washington can win yet another game against LA. But this time, the Los Angeles Saints have something else to say about that, winning 9-1. So LA gets themselves going a little bit as we're getting towards the end of this regular season. So the last notable game that I wanted to talk to you guys about before I show you the final regular season standings for year 2 of the USBL is this game between Chicago and Pittsburgh. Now, Chicago and Pittsburgh, they're both, you know, pretty brought in, you know, trying to establish positioning, trying to figure out who's going to host the wild card game over in the American League. But Pittsburgh, they got something to say about that still. They beat Chicago 4-2, and check out some of these scores around the league. Atlanta beating Boston. So Baltimore was given a chance to take the lead in the American League East briefly. They couldn't do that. Cleveland gets their upset as well. Indianapolis also upsets Minnesota, so they, you know, can't necessarily clinch the division off rip as of right now. Washington loses to New Orleans, but Philadelphia wins. So Philadelphia, I think, does end up taking the lead for a brief moment. And then, yeah, only thing left to do now, I'll now simulate to the end of the season, because that was really the last notable score that I wanted to show you guys. Let's see who's going to the playoffs, who's going to be staying at home. All right, boys, so this is what the final standings ended up shaking out to be. And this is also your teams representing the USBL playoffs here in season number 2. First, we have the Boston Quakers. They win the American League East. 84-78 was what got it done. Baltimore narrowly eliminated. They were in it to the very end, but that cold streak, losing 6 games in a row, by the way, that really ended up sealing the deal. Over in the AL Central, the Chicago Freeze actually ended up taking care of business at the end of the day. They win the AL Central once again, and they will not have to go through the wild card. The 2 wild card teams come from this division as well. We do see the Minnesota Ducks and the Pittsburgh Force with that first and second wild card. And so Columbus actually was in there as well. They had a pretty good season overall, but it was just a tough wild card this season. You know, it was definitely a tough look. And then to round out the American League, we have the Honolulu Islanders. 99-63 was their record. They will have the best record in the American League and will take on the winner of the Minnesota Ducks and the Pittsburgh Force. But now we go ahead and jump into the National League East, and the Philadelphia Patriots, for the second time in this series, they do win the division. They do not have the best record in the National League, but they finished with a pretty good 92-70. We'll see if they have a little bit more playoff success this time around. But two wildcard teams, though, LA and Washington. Now, that will be a really good matchup. I can't wait to see how that ends up shaking out. But for the other two teams that are going to be in the National League playoffs, you got the Aurora Lightning. They do end up winning the division this year. An 88-74 record. The worst among the division leaders, like with the exception of Boston. Boston had the weakest division in baseball. But the San Francisco Seals, they finish with over 100 wins. It's the best record in all of baseball. San Francisco, 101-61 on the year. They have the best record in all of baseball, and they will have the #1 seed in the USBL playoffs. So guys, this is going to go ahead. This is what the playoff bracket's going to be looking like. And what I want to do, since we don't have any tiebreakers to resolve, what I want to do is I want to have two separate premieres. One premiere will be the American League wild card, and the other premiere will be for the National League wild card. It should be a good one either way, so I hope you guys are excited for it. And if you did, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe if you have to be brand new as well. This is JohnJake Baseball on the mic signing off. I'm hoping you're all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.